Hello everyone, welcome for this first video about who does what in an army, how many peoples are really fighting on the front line, and things like that. So I think you heard, like everyone, that there is sometimes numbers like 30,000 people fighting in Bakhmut or things like that. There is so many numbers dropped like this without any meaning, and it would perhaps make you think that there is really, for example, in the city of Bakhmut, 20,000 people fighting, which is not the case. The reality is that it's much less than what you think, and in this video I'm going to try to show you, to explain you why it's not. So first of all, as you can see in my video here, like in my map, you see this front line, and I would like you to understand that this kind of units with a small line here is 100 100 peoples, 100 soldiers, fighting soldiers. And when there is two lines like this, it's 1000 soldiers. It's, if you do the math, it doesn't like add up to 20,000 people or things like that, like you see on other places. If you look at this map, you will see that there is, for example, in the Karpaty group forces that Ukraine is gathering or preparing for a counteroffensive, there should be like 13,000 people, sorry. But as you can see in my mapping, there is 100, 200, things like that. It's not a lot. Really less than what you saw on this map. So why? If you already saw videos on the front line, you may have noticed that on each videos we are far from seeing numbers of soldiers fighting like in World War II or World War I movies or footages. In almost all videos, we only see at most around 20 soldiers in trenches or even assaulting or walking somewhere. Yeah, that's really different from what you see on this map again. So in reality, videos from that front line are quite numerous, and it will never show you such amounts of soldiers fighting. It doesn't match up with what you see on this map. The map I showed you, there is not 13,000 people, for example, in the north of Bakhmut, nor in the south, nor everywhere. So here are some footages from the front line I can show. Hope YouTube doesn't strike me.
Быстрее, быстрее! Пулемет, огонь! Второй этаж, видишь? Да.
As you can see, if there was really thousands of soldiers, you will see peoples everywhere at all time. If today there isn't as many soldiers directly on the front line, it's due to mainly two reasons. First, soldiers today need a lot of more important support behind. So there is a ratio of soldiers that are fighting, and compared to the number of soldiers that are behind. It's named the toe to tail ratio. In this ratio, modern warfare is around like one soldiers on the front line, and each of these soldiers on the front line has needs 9 soldiers behind, which already means that for the 13,000 soldiers north of Bakhmut, there is in reality, if I do the maths quickly, it's like just 1,000 soldiers fighting in reality. But the number is even less than that. Here's why I've made some example of that. So in this example I made, you have two groups of soldiers, two squads. A blue squad, which is 20 soldiers, and a yellow squad, which is 20 soldiers too. And so the blue squad is the Russian, and the yellow one is the Ukrainians. So in my mapping, as you saw, the smallest unit size is a company, which is, as I said, around 100 soldiers, which is far from the thousands of soldiers. Anyway, I already explained why it's not true. It's far from what is shown by everyone, or the journalists, or the medias. But even these 100 soldiers, just 100, is still somewhat false, because it doesn't reflect the truth. Let me show you why. As you can see, in my example, these two groups are fighting. What happens when a fighting happens, when a battle happens? They fight, and then the squad leaves. One of the squad leaves. Most of the time, it's the attacker is leaving after he ended his assault. So here the Russian squad is leaving. Contrary to belief, an assault doesn't end when everyone is dead. You have to understand that. On one side, when everyone is dead on one side, nor when the assaulting group, here the Russian, managed to capture the enemy position. So even if the Russians in this example managed to kill most of the Ukrainians in the trench, it will not mean that the Russians will just take this trench. It doesn't. No, it's not that, because if the assault is successful, it doesn't mean there is any map changes. It's rare that there is a map change for such assault, because when they manage to kill everyone in the trench, do you think they are going to just enter the trench like that? A trench need to be the trench need to be repaired. It needs to be set up again, but facing toward the enemy this time, not toward yourself. You have to bring in ammunitions, food, to everything. Like, you understand, it's not as easy as it may think. And most importantly, if there is no more Ukrainian in this trench, what stops now the Ukrainian from shelling this trench to kill the Russians? You understand? No, why? So it works on both sides. I could have taken another example, but here it's Bakhmut, so it's a better example. So you understand? There won't be really any changes in the map. So now the goal of an assault is just to kill. It's sad, but it's just to kill as many enemies as possible. You have to understand that in this war, in modern wars, it's a number. It's a thing. It's just a number thing. One side has to weaken the enemy for up until the enemy has no more men or power or anything like that to send, or either when the enemy, like the enemy soldier, doesn't want to fight and start to rebel and ask to stop the war, things like that. The goal is not to retake positions, but to just kill as much enemies as possible, and that's really all that is. And once the start is over, once the battle is over, for example, the Russians in this case just go back. They have to resupply, they have to heal the wounded, and everything like that. So in the battle, for example, after the battle, the Ukrainian squad composed of 20 soldiers is down at 11 soldiers. We can't say it's the same for the Russians. They also lost 9 soldiers, but in this example, I'm really going to focus on the Ukrainian side. And here, as you can see, the units shown on my map are of 100 soldiers. So from my mapping to this, there is a big difference. In my mapping, I say that the smallest unit is 100 soldiers, a company. But here I'm just showing you just 20 soldiers fighting, and now there is even less soldiers. There is just 11 soldiers. So where is the why is such a big difference? It's because in the 100 soldiers mapping, when I map a company, 100 soldiers, truth is that there is still a lot of soldiers behind, because as you can see, those soldiers need to rest, to be replaced, to things like that. So when there is a group of Ukrainians fighting at some place, 20 soldiers, and some of them die, they are not going to stay there. There is a rotation, troop rotation. During this time, there is still 80 soldiers behind in Chassivier, in this example, in the reserve. So when these 11 remaining soldiers go back, they are replaced by 20 fresh soldiers. You understand? It's a rotation thing. There is not each time the same soldiers. It's always a rotation, because if all the company is dead, so what stops the Russians from advancing? You understand? There is constant rotation, meaning there is constant supplies of soldiers. So when these 11 soldiers are arriving at the reserve to be resupplied, heal and things like that, there is at the same time they have been replaced by 20 new soldiers. But it's not over, because now before we had a company 100 soldiers, which 20 were fighting and 80 were in the reserve. But now that the Ukrainians lost 9 soldiers, it means that there is just 71 soldiers in the reserve now. But at this rate, if there is each time this many losses after each fight, the company will disappear. You understand? And this is when the recruitment comes in play. During this same time, the Ukrainian military is recruiting, training new frontline soldiers. They are training them, and when they finish to train them, they send them to resupplies each companies, each groups, each battalion, each squads, each brigades. You understand? So that's where the recruitment comes in play, which is why in this example, the Ukrainian military allocated 9 new soldiers to this company, which means that this company, even if they lost 9 soldiers, they now are back to 80 soldiers in reserve, 20 soldiers fighting. And even where there is no fightings, there is still rotation, so these 20 soldiers fighting, they are not like there until there is a fight. It's constant rotations. I don't know, I did not find any information about like how long until there's rotation, how many rotations per weeks, but I believe there is at least some days of rest each week. So here is a sum up of what I said in this video. I hope you now understand better what it really means when you hear people talking about 20,000 soldiers fighting in Bakhmut, or 200,000 soldiers being gathered for a Zaporozhye offensive, or things like that. Why there is not as many soldiers today as before? It's simple. It's really simple. First of all, soldiers today are better treated, meaning, as you can see, they need to be replaced, to not be on the front line at all time. They have to rest, things like that. But also they need more supplies. They need to have their weapons repaired, more ammunition. The weapons used on the front line today need a lot more of repair and attention of care than before. And also, most importantly, today both sides know exactly where the soldiers are. And artillery today is very precise, meaning if you put a large amount of soldiers in some trenches, like in World War One, or if you do assault, like in World War Two, or things like that, all your soldiers are going to get killed. If there is such an amount of people in one place, they are all going to get killed. So it's really not smart to send anything more than 10 soldiers at once. And it's also why you hear Ukraine talking about preparing a counteroffensive in Zaporozhye. People say they are so dumb to talk about it. Why do they talk about it? Why don't they keep it secret? How do you want to keep an offensive secret when the enemy side Russia has satellites. They know exactly where the soldiers are. They know. So don't you think that it's pointless to just hide that there will be an offensive when the Russians anyway already see that there is some gathering of troops and forces and build up things like that? No, it's pointless. That's why there is no real strategy today in the sense that there is no secrecy or things like that. It doesn't exist anymore. So like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and see you for the next video. Bye bye.